Any questions for Eric?
I just want to point one other thing. This is, again, like everything associated with Fort Worth Water, the 6.5 that we're about to issue will be split between Hudson Oaks and Willow Park through an interlocal agreement. So just like the previous debt with the Water Development Board, our name's on the line, but we have partners in there with us.
And that's at 5248, correct?
5248, yes.
All right. Eric, thank you. Do we have a motion?
We'll need to read the caption of the ordinance.
Okay,
You want me to read it?
Please.
please.
All right. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of City of Willow Park, Texas combination tax and waterworks and sewer system surplus revenue certificates of obligation, Series 2021, in the maximum principal amount not to exceed $6.5 million, providing for the payment of said certificates of obligation by the levy of an ad valorem tax upon all taxable property within the city, and a pledge of the net revenues derived from the operation of the city's combined waterworks and sewer system, providing the terms and conditions of such certificates and resolving other matters incident and relating to the issuance, payment, security, sale, and delivery of said certificates, including the approval and execution of a paying agent registrar agreement and the approval and distribution of an official statement and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as read.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Councilman Contreras, you're dismissed.
Oh, thank you.
Item number 2, we need a motion to table that, please.
I'll make a motion that we table items number 2 and 3. Can I do both of them at the same time?
Unless somebody wants to separate them.
I think that's good. We have a motion to table items 2 and 3.
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 4, the City Council may consider, discuss, and take action on approving a preliminary schedule of drainage charges to be charged to benefited property as deemed by the Municipal Drainage Utility Systems Act for publication in the newspaper. A public hearing will be conducted on the drainage charges at a future council meeting, such meeting tentatively scheduled for February 23rd, 2021. Mr. Grimes.
So since we've tabled items 2 and 3, we are going to, regardless, run a ad in the paper disclosing the schedule, the proposed schedule of fees that we've discussed at previous meetings from Derek. Those fees have not changed at all since their initial presentation. And so I would need a motion from council authorizing staff to take all measures to have a public hearing on February 23rd. Is that sufficient, Pat?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we have staff publish a public hearing to be conducted tentatively for February 23rd, 2021 for the publishing
Of the schedule of fees?
the preliminary schedule of drainage charges.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 5, the City Council may consider, discuss, and take action on a resolution creating the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee and appointing its members and establishing and adopting procedural rules for and duties associated with the committee in accordance with Chapter 395 of the Texas Local Government Code. Mr. Grimes.
Part of the process for adopting impact fees, not a rate, but impact fees for new development is we have to have what's called a Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, and we can have planning and zoning serve as that committee as long as there is a real estate professional on the committee. And so we do actually have a realtor on P&Z. It's Sharon Burton. And so after consultation with city attorney, our P&Z can serve as that advisory committee. Pat, do you want to get into particulars of what that committee does?
Basically, what they're
The
going,
charge?
they're basically, their role is going to be, look at our land use assumptions that Derek has drafted up and give public input on those. And so basically, they'll have a meeting to discuss the land use assumptions and the capital improvements plan, again, that Derek has prepared for us. And they'll give their comments. We'll have a public hearing on the adoption of those two documents. And so they'll give their comments and input on those two documents prior to our adoption of them. So that'll be the role. They'll also play a role over time to monitor the effectiveness and any changes we want to make. So it's required by statute before you can adopt impact fees to have this committee in place and play a role in the adoption of impact fees. So we'll have a meeting or two in January, and if we're going to have it done on the 9th or the 23rd, I guess, actually. So we'll depend on, we're going to look at our schedule completely, but at the end of the day, they will look at our plan and we'll have a public hearing on that plan.
So we're appointing a planning and zoning committee to be the advisory committee.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Planning and Zoning Committee as the advisory committee for the capital.
Do we need to read the resolution?
I would do
caption.
the caption again, if you would.
Okay, let's see. Make a motion to approve a resolution of the City of Willow Park, Texas, creating a capital improvement advisory committee and appointing its members, establishing and adopting procedural rules for the duties associated therewith in accordance with Chapter 395 of the Texas Local Government Code regarding impact fees, making various findings and provisions related to the subject of impact fees, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 6, update on the May 1st, 2021 election calendar. Mr. Grimes?
I'll let City Secretary Smith provide the information.
Good evening, council. As many of you know, we have an election coming up May 1st for mayor, council place, city council place 1, and city council place 2. Packets are ready to go out. Tomorrow is the first day to turn in your application. I have application packets by paper. I have them printed out. I have them online, and I do have USBs. I have them on USB. So whichever way anyone that wants to run, wants to fill it out, just let me know, call my office. As I said, January 13th is the first day to file the election for a place on the ballot. February 12th is the last day for an applicant for a place on the ballot, 5 o'clock on February 12th, and there can be no exceptions. April 20th is going to be the first day for early voting by personal appearance. April 28th is the last day for early voting, and May 1st is election day. If anybody has any questions,
Question on calling the election.
I will do that in February. Because of the way it falls this year, it's going to be called in February instead of January.
Okay.
And I'll get that exact date out to everybody, and that'll help me with the ordinance.
So we'll
Okay.
call it on the February 9th meeting, the first meeting.
I think the way I'm reading it, and I'll get with you just to make sure, the way I'm reading it, we'll have to call it at the second meeting.
On the 23rd? Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I want you to look at that just to make sure. Does anyone have questions? All right.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, wastewater treatment update. Derek?
I think so. I'm going to look at it again.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, council. Just a quick update on where we're at on the wastewater treatment plant project. As you recall, in, I believe it was June, early June, we submitted an application to the Texas Water Development Board for financial funding through their Clean Water State Revolving Fund to fund the project to build a new wastewater plant. I checked with them within the last few days, and they have told me that that application is scheduled to be on their March 11th agenda for approval. That means they'll pass their resolution issuing the approval of the funding. And then you have to go through a couple of different notice periods and go through a process for closing. I talked to Eric, who was just here, about the timing of that, and we think we're probably looking at July, first water board meeting in July timeframe to be able to close. So you're looking at, I forget if I had a date on it, but it would be first week or so of July. So the earliest the money would be in your hands would be at that point. So that's where that's at in the process. That's $17 million funding packet. It's similar terms to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, as you recall. It's probably going to be very close to 0% if interest rates don't change between now and then. So it's still looking very good in that sense. Once that is approved, the Texas Water Development Board will officially put us into the planning phase of the project, which means at that point, you can draw money to pay for environmental assessments, the planning, the preliminary engineering or final engineering prior to design, and permitting and land acquisition. So that money for that would be in hand then, and once all those items are completed and approved, then they would go into the design phase, much like we did on the water project. So kind of looking at this on two different tracks. That's the funding part of it. We also have to get a new permit approved for the wastewater treatment plant and the new location and the new sizing and everything. That application has been started. We're working on that now. We expect to probably have that ready to submit to the TCEQ around that middle of March. I believe March 15th is the date that we're shooting for. So you can generally expect about a 12-month turnaround on a permit like that, starting from when we started. So you're probably looking at about this time next year or next year. Before that would be finally approved, but I'm thinking and I'm hoping that by the time your funding comes through, we'll be far enough along in the process that we'll know kind of where we stand with neighboring entities. And that's something we need to coordinate as we go to make sure that we don't have any hidden issues, somebody filing a protest and that kind of thing. And we've already had a lot of those discussions prior to now. So the next steps is to start the environmental process and begin as you know, the property for the plant is being taken care of now as we speak, and I assume will be completed very soon. And once that's done, we'll need to go in and create a final engineering report and finalize all of that document. You've seen the preliminary engineering report. We've discussed it numerous times. But so the environmental in that process, and then continue with the permitting are really the next steps, and the acquisition. Of course, the site is the big item there, but we also have some easements that we'll have to get, actually minimal, because a lot of it is already, some of it's taken care of with the property exchange. Some of it is already in place. So, but there will be a little bit of easement acquisition we'll have to take care of too, and that'll fall into that planning phase of the project.
Ron, you want to mention the land swap status too, as far as this goes?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, right now, we've gotten the preliminary title work. Derek and I have looked at it. The one big problem, which it can be easily rectified, there was a restrictive covenant when the church acquired the property. It said we could not,
Can you
could be
talk
no
in-
sewer plants on the property. So that obviously, but it was, the grantor was a partnership of Jim Martin and what's the other gentleman's name? Hanley.
Hanley.
So anyway, I think they obviously can waive that. So we've objected to that. We've also not received their Phase 2 environmental. We've gotten their Phase 1. And in the meantime, we were waiting on their Phase 2. We discovered some illegal dumping on the site. Derek and Michelle, I think, our Public Works Director, had noticed that. So we put them on notice that there was some dumping on their property. So I've asked them to go ahead and complete the Phase 2. We need to get that done. So we're waiting on that. But everything right now, Derek's looked at the easements, so none of them will present a problem for us building at the location. There's a number of gas easements, utility easements, and so we need to make sure they wouldn't affect our build site. So they do not, and so we're just about there. We just got to get that Phase 2 from them, and so that's where we're at.
Okay, thanks.
I have a-
Go ahead.
When do we look at turning dirt then? About a year from now then? Or are we?
Optimistically, 12 months might be doable, maybe more like 18.
Okay.
As far, and as, you know, that schedule, the environmental assessment's probably the biggest delay up front. Could we go ahead and start the environmental assessment and have it accepted by TWDB?
We've already started.
Okay,
Yeah, we usually do because of that time frame.
yeah.
I mean, nothing would be billed until you close.
Yeah, and the environmental assessment's basically, we run it by historical commission
You
and,
send out to about a dozen different agencies, and you have to wait on them to respond. So getting that initial notice to them early is kind of critical. So
and so, okay. When did we start the EA?
just within the right before Christmas.
Okay. That's gonna be typically a 6-month process, so if starting it sooner was probably,
You have to create a series of maps, quite a few maps. And so we've started getting those together now, but we'll try to have that notice out very soon.
okay. So we're scheduled for the 11th of March. Our next council meeting after that is, what, anybody got a calendar right in front of them?
Well, April, unless we do the second in March.
Yeah, if we do a second meeting in March, we would issue 45-day notice on the 23rd, so you could conceivably issue the debt backed by the Water Development Board at the first May meeting.
I think, no,
Uh,
you said July
Yeah, I
for
think you
closing.
We close it
maybe
with,
missed a step there, but, well, for close, yes, no,
At the
you're
wa-
right. And
at the
then-
Water
Then
Development
you've got
Board.
45 days
Yeah.
roughly to close, so,
Yeah, it'd
from the
be-
date you act.
Yeah.
It'd be in May. so-
if it's like drinking water, we issued notice, we would issue notice on March 23rd. You got 45 days after that. That gets you to the first meeting in March where we would close on the debt. And then it goes to Water Development Board for approval, probably in June.
Right.
Yep.
I think it's,
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Item number 8, to consider an act on accepting an easement from Roy
They got it. They got it.
Maniato. I'm sorry, I butchered that name.
No, that's correct. You want to?
okay, so this is the last remaining easement we needed for the treated water line from Fort Worth to the El Chico pump station site. We've talked about this in the past, recent past as well, but we come along the interstate, we turn north behind the commercial businesses on El Chico.
Behind
And then-
Mercer, I'm sorry, behind
Yeah.
Mercer, Sprouts.
The
that
daycare,
area.
right. And there's a property on the north end of that leg that we have to cross to get back to the west and cross El Chico to get to the pump station site. It's fairly short stretch, but it goes across Mr. Maniato's private property, and so we've been trying to tie that easement up. He originally was not interested in working anything out. We had it appraised with the assumption that we may be going to condemnation. We had subsequent meetings with him after we got the appraisal. The appraisal was $30,300, which was more than what was expected, but that's what the appraisal was. Met with Mr. Maniato, had several discussions, and he agreed to avoid condemnation to go to accept $40,150, which was basically a midpoint between the appraisal and what his offer was. So my recommendation is to move forward with it. I don't think he's not gonna come down. We don't really have a viable option any other direction. There are other options, but they're pretty expensive. We looked at the cost of going down El Chico or boring the concrete parking lot, and the prices the contractor wanted for boring were pretty high. So it actually comes out to be quite a bit more to do either one of those. So there's plenty of money in the acquisition budget in the project for this. In fact, we'll still be way, way, way below budget on that line item. But that's our recommendation. He assigned the easement in anticipation of you guys approving that. So if you do, then we've got the document in hand and ready to be recorded.
Okay?
And you said $40,150?
Thanks, Derek. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that the City of Willow Park accept the easement agreement with Roy Maniato in an amount not to exceed $40,150 as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Derek. To consider an act on, number 9, to consider an act on items to be considered for future council meetings.
At this moment, I have no business for us to discuss on January 26th. If you want to cancel the meeting, we can. That's the next scheduled meeting. If something comes up, I guess we can call it. We have no business to discuss.
Do we need to make a motion to not have that meeting?
Is that item number 10?
Huh?
Yes, yeah, number 10 will be that motion.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 9, we,
Don't have any items for the next meeting.
I don't
Okay.
have anything.
okay, number 10, thank you. To consider an act on setting the date and time for the next council meeting, which is, I'm sorry, the date?
March 9th, I think, is.
No,
Oh, sorry,
February 9th.
February 9th.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we cancel the January 26th meeting, and our next meeting is February 9th.
True enough.
Okay, very good. Do we have a second? A motion, you made a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Nathan. Any other discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Next meeting is February the 9th. Mayor's comments. We got a text from Mr. Grimes yesterday, I think. Our sales tax is up 18% from last year. That's a great thing.
Very nice.
That'll help the city do more, and things continue to do well, or be well for Willow Park. Mr. Grimes,
Any council member comments before?
anybody else have anything?
No.
Just to dovetail off the sales tax, we're actually ahead of budget of what we were. I think we're 5% ahead of the budgeted number that we've got, which is incredibly good, because we were kind of wondering if we hung too high of a goal out there, and I think we're going to easily meet that. The next sales tax will be February. That's historically been the biggest month in the year for us, so we're waiting for that as well. We have switched over all of our utility billing and other software from STW to Encode. The staff is getting acclimated to it. I think we are going to like this system a lot better than what we had in the past. To kind of give you an idea, we were running our utility billing off of a software that was just a little bit better than QuickBooks. And so we are now on the standard of other municipalities in the state of Texas. And I know Candy has I don't want to give her a big attaboy. She has done yeoman's work trying to get the utility billing and everything back in order. Her and Jake have stayed late, come in early to make sure the books are as good as possible. Obviously, when you're moving that much information, that much data over, there's some things we're finding, but we are correcting them. I want to thank Encode. They've been wonderful to work with as well. Couple of meetings that I have coming up. We have a pre-con meeting next Tuesday with Fort Worth to discuss the water line from Willow Park to Hudson Oaks. Then we have another pre-con meeting on next Friday to discuss the line from Fort Worth to Willow Park. I also think we've got either the 60 or the 90% on the pump station and ground store.
60%.
Was it
The
60?
90 is
It's
almost full.
yeah. So we should be getting that estimate in and getting that project going soon. We are communicating with Fort Worth to handle our peak supply in the summertime. They've offered, and I think we're working through their stages of approval at the city in Fort Worth for 500,000 a day, in addition to the summer, in addition to our pumps this summer. So things are progressing pretty quickly on that. Derek gave you the update on wastewater. We feel really good about where we are from a utility standpoint, and you know, this is all the details, and so that's all the fun stuff that we got to do to make sure we have it right.
Water meters.
Thank you. We did go through the water meters. The schedule for that will be, they're going to do the back end, which is all the technology things. They'll make that network up front, and then they'll do the meters later. We're probably expecting that full thing to be online sometime around May 1 to June 1, if all things go as planned.
Very good. Good timing.
And the meter system is going to be, I think people are going to enjoy it. I think they're going to enjoy that with Encode. We will have done a lot for customer service for our clients.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Go Bearcats!